Hello, and welcome to my green limited Lord of the Rings set review. Today I'm just going over the green cards, unlimited, and that's about it. I'm talking about cards based on these 5 tiers that you can see here when I turn my camera off temporarily if I hit the right button. And this is sort of how I rate cards. Generally, the best cards are tier 1, worst cards are tier 5. It's maybe a little bit of a different system than other people use, because I think that, I don't know. I just like, this is the way I like doing it. It's sort of more for me, help see, just to read over the cards a whole bunch at the beginning of the set, just to sort of know what they do. I found it to be very helpful, to be honest with you, in terms of like my early performance in sets. I tend to do well, or like a lot better early in the set than I used to, just because I do this process now. Speaking of the process, let us get into it with our first green card. Bag End Porter, 3 and a green for a 4/4. When it gains X plus X when it attacks until end of turn, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Yeah, I think this thing's solid. Like, I'm kind of a 4-mana 4/4 is decent guy, But yeah, this guy just, like, you're gonna have probably minimum 1 legendary creature, so it attacks as a 5/5. It's kind of large. It doesn't really do anything other than be large. It doesn't have types either. Like dwarf is not, like a single type dwarf is not generally like the creature type line that you are especially interested in this set. But also, why is a dwarf a 4/4? It's kind of a good question. It's for other people to answer, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's just sort of a solid guy that is fine. It's very average. Bombadil's Song. 1 and a green for an instant. Target creature you control gets +1/+1, gains hexproof until end of turn. The ring tempts you. So, recently we've been seeing cards like this that give a counter. This does not give a counter, notably. It also only gives hexproof and not indestructible. So, like, there's a lot about this that makes it worse than sort of the tricks we've been seeing of this type of effect lately. I don't think the ring tempts you is good enough for me to be super interested in this, to be honest with you. Like, there's just a lot of situations where this is not doing enough. I don't know. Like the 2-drop in blue guy is much better than this card in my opinion, because this card doesn't provide a body. It doesn't like give you a hexproof thing on the battlefield for like convoke and sacrifice. Like that one is just fewer rectangles. Like this one gives you a ring temptation, but I don't think a ring tempting is like worth that much. Like, yes, you kind of want to get to 2 at some point during the game, but like this one, like I guess you can put it on the creature. I don't know. The minimal combo implications make me think this card is like less, like, just has lower flexibility, right, than if it just gave indestructible instead of hexproof. I think usually indestructible is better than hexproof and for these effects. Now, obviously, there are some cases where it's not, but I'd say like the majority of cases that's just true. So I don't know. I'm starting low on this one. Brandywine Farmer, 2 and a green for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, create a food token or leaves the battlefield also. Yeah, I mean, like, you can say that this makes 3 game objects, but the reality is that it is making like 2, maybe 2 game objects, because like this, like 3 mana 1/1 does not count. In black or red, maybe it counts. In green, it does not count at all as a game object. A 3 mana 1/1 in green is basically useless. It like doesn't even like it doesn't. Like, yes, theoretically it can be a ring bearer, but like that's not doing it for me. Like, I just don't. Like, even then, there's 1/3s on the opponent's side. Like, there's a lot of 1/3s that just exist in this set, and this thing just like completely gets blanked and like just doesn't. I like, how are you sacrificing this creature in green? I guess is kind of my question. And then when you do that, like, you have 2 food tokens, but you don't have them immediately. I don't know. I think they could have made this like a 2/1. And then I'd be like kind of interested in it, because then it at least blocks sort of a little bit, kind of does anything. And I would have been like, ooh, interesting, lots of tokens. But then it's like a 3 mana 1/1, and I'm like, no. Celeborn the Wise, 3 and a green for a 3/3. When you attack with 1 or more elves, scry 1. When you scry, this thing gets +1/+1 for each card you look at while scrying. So this is another like green thing that just kind of like is large and doesn't really like there's a lot of green creatures in this set that are just like stats. Like, you just get a lot of stats, and this is one of them. like, yes, it allows you to attack as a 4/4 in Scry 1, which is probably decent. This probably should be like a little higher, but it doesn't block like at all. It's a 4 mana 3. It's another. There's a lot of 4 mana 3/3s in this set. This is one of them, which makes me think that blocking is just not a thing that you are allowed to, like, it's legal. Cause like this doesn't block 3-drops a lot of times, so like it just kind of has to attack. Like it's priced into attacking, and it attacks as a 4/4, which is great. There are some other elves. So you can theoretically, like, but you can't, like, pump the other elves. The other elves have good attacks to Scry 1. So, I don't know. I'm low on this card. I'm not going to take it very highly. Chance Met Elves. 2 and a green for a 3/2. When you scry, put a +1/+1 counter on it. This ability triggers only once each turn. I'm just really not super interested in 3 mana 3/2 that can maybe grow when you scry. Like, I guess, like in blue-green, maybe. Like, maybe this is acceptable. It's definitely not acceptable anywhere else. So, like, if this card isn't good in blue-green, it's just not a good card. I'll be taking it low. So, here's sort of my thesis on blue-green, like the Scry deck, broadly. My thesis is that week 1, it's going to be the worst deck in the format. Other than, like, red-green, maybe. I don't know, red-green might be worse. But basically my reasoning behind that is I think that, like, it's just very obvious that that's, like, what the color pair is doing, and so people are going to, like, gravitate towards doing that because it's so, like, clearly defined. And then the cards for it are going to get overdrafted, and it just is going to be, like, miserable to try to play it. Also, the color pair is usually just bad anyway, so, like, it usually takes a lot for it to be good. What I think is then going to happen is that people are going to completely underrate the color pair. People are going to draft, like, I don't know, probably, like, any other deck. Basically, the people are just going to stop drafting green cards, and then there might be, like, a deck that emerges in, like, week 4 of the format that's like, hey, it's green-blue, like, green-blue Scry is actually good now, because people stop taking the payoffs, like, they're, like, first pickable. Like, this is not, like, a first pickable card, but, like, I could totally see people, like, taking this like it's a first pickable card, because it's, like, it grows, and it does some scrying and stuff, and it's whatever. Like, I don't know, I think that these cards are going to get better as the format goes along, and then at the end of the format, they're going to be bad again, because people will know that they, like, exist, right? So, this is sort of my like, my bold prediction for the set is that blue-green is going to follow this exact, like very bad, okay, bad again trajectory in the set, which is sort of a rare pattern, but it does happen sometimes. It happened with, like, I'm trying to think of the last time it happened with the color pair. That's kind of how it was with, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have an example for this actually ever happening, but that's why, you know, we're predicting it. Delighted Halfling, single green mana for a 1/2. You can tap it to add colorless, or you can add 1 mana of any color. Only spend 1 mana only spend that mana to cast a legendary spell, and that spell can't be countered. I should probably move this to tier 2, to be honest with you. I just am not, like, a huge mana dork fan. This is a good mana dork. Like, it is adding 1 mana of any color for a lot of spells in your deck, so it allows you to splash legendaries, and it just gives you a colorless for the rest of your deck, which is great. So, like, on turn 2, you're playing a 3-drop. It's pretty good. Like, it's pretty good. I probably should just bump this up a little bit. I don't think it's busted by any means. Like, I think it's fine. But, like, generally, mana dorks do, like, they tend to overstay their welcome. This is a 1/2, which is better than a lot of them. Jaspera Sentinel comps, maybe. It's a rare, maybe. Some people, like, Sentinel Stalwart, kind of. Like, there's some, again, those cards were good because you could get them in multiples, but it does kind of do the same sort of idea as, like, you're getting to add 1 mana of any color for 1 mana, which is pretty good. So, and it does have a buyout, so I think it's going to be a decent card. Dunedin Rangers, 3 green for a 4/4 landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you don't control a ring bearer, the ring tempts you. So this is just, like, one of my many complaints about green in this set is that landfall, like, kind of exists, but doesn't actually, like, is not supported at all. They just, like, threw it onto some cards for reasons that I can't figure out. I'm just really mad about green. I don't know, I started thinking about this recently. And I was like, when was the last time green was the best color in a limited set? And it's like Neon Dynasty, but, like, not really. Like, red was better if you just drafted mono red. Like, black was actually kind of better in that set. Like, when was the last time green was the clear best color? Like, because this, like, in Much of the Machine, blue clearly the best color. For actually all be one, red clearly the best color. And when I talk about best color, I mean like early in the format. Like I'm not talking about late in the format. The format tends to balance itself out. Most formats will balance themselves out, and all the colors will be playable and whatever. But I'm talking about like this is the most dominant color. You have to draft it early. It's always whatever, and that just doesn't happen that often. Like it just doesn't occur very often, ever. So I just I don't know. Anyway, this is another 4 mana 4/4. It's fine. Like it certainly can rain tempt you, and that's nice. And yeah. Elven Chorus. 3 and a green for an enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library. Creatures you control have tap 1 mana, add 1 mana any color. So yeah, this is likely to do nothing the turn that you play it, which is very, very bad. It probably draws you, like what is it? This has to draw you 3 cards for you to be happy, right? Now it allows you to ramp, like you can ramp a little bit with your board, so like it definitely can snowball, but your opponent, like you play this and your opponent removes your 3-drop, you're like, oh, I have a 2-drop in play, and that's it, and now I'm never casting. And like, yes, sometimes it'll draw you cards, whatever. I don't know. I think the downsides of this card are high. But I think there are games where it goes off and just wins, like the high upside card, but also like very, very high downside card. Like you cast it and it just doesn't do anything ever, and you just like you just get unlucky in the top card. Like if your deck is 18 creatures, it's still less than half of your deck is like half of the time you're gonna be able to cast a creature, and then there's no guarantee that it's actually a creature that you want to cast. I don't know. Elven Farsight. Single green mana for a sorcery. Scry 3, then you may reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, draw a card. Yeah, I think this card's really good. There are haters out there. There's haters everywhere that are hating on this card. I may one day join them, and by one day I mean probably in by the time like next week rolls around. What is it? Thursday today? Yeah, no. By next Thursday, I'm probably gonna hate this card and never play it. But for now, I'm looking like to miss with this card. You basically have to miss in your top 4, which means that, like, on average, for you to miss in your top 4 is really difficult. If you have even if you have 10 creatures in your deck, this card shouldn't miss in your top 4 on average. Now, again, like, yeah, it's really hard to miss in your top 4. Basically, is what I'm saying. If you have 13 creatures or more, you shouldn't be worried about missing with this. Most limited decks that are green are gonna have 15 creatures in them. You know, like that's 8 non-creature spells, and like that includes this. But like I don't know, like you're gonna play a lot of creatures in this set. This is a creature heavy set. There's no battles or anything, so no planeswalkers. Like all the stuff's creatures. It's creatures, instant sorceries for the most part in this set. So there's some sagas, but they're not good for the most part. So like, yeah, I don't know. I like this card a lot. I think it just like it does synergize too. It does scry. I don't know if you actually want it in the blue-green like aggressive scry deck. I think the scry deck is probably more of a mid-range deck anyway, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. My hot take is that this card's very good. Enraged Huron. 4 and a green for a 4/5 trample. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Yeah, this is just not it for me. Like 5 mana 4/5 trample is just not good enough for to get me to play. If this was a 5/5, I'd be like, maybe, perhaps, you know, because it's a 4/5. I'm like, no, no, I don't think so actually. It is a tree folk, so if you have the green uncommon that we're going to talk about sometime in the near future, you could play it in a deck with that, although that card's a 6-drop, so then you're playing like, how many 5-drops and 6-drops are you really going to play in your deck? And the answer is like not that many, so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's like you probably don't just lose the game on the spot. It doesn't have like a reach or anything. It doesn't block, so. Entish Restoration. 2 and a green for an instant. Sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, which I guarantee you is never going to happen, instead search your library for 3 basic land types. 3 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So yeah, it's great if you have a creature with power 4 or greater, but when you have a creature with power 4 or greater on the battlefield, you are going to have played 4 lands already. Like it will be, there's almost nothing in this set that is 3 mana with 4 power. There's the one common, and that's it. and that's just not enough for me. And like you want to play this on 3, so like it's much better if you play it on 3. Like you're getting more lands later on is not really like what you want to be doing. Yes, it thins your deck, which is nice, admittedly. But I'm like it fixes you, but you already had to like spells that like this one technically you don't only need lands, but if you want to like don't think about this card as like ever getting the additional mode. Like that just isn't happening enough for you to be happy about it, right? Like you're I don't know. It's just to me like yes, it ramps you, does fix you. If that's what you want, fine. I just don't think that's generally what you want to be doing. Ents Fury. 1 and a green for sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. If its power is 4 or greater, then that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn and fights target creature you don't control. Again, there are fewer 4 power greater creatures than you would like, especially cheap ones. Like they're all 4 mana. So your removal spell doesn't work on their early threats, which is probably isn't that big of a deal in this set. There's almost no creatures that are worth removing. So like there's not any. There's basically no bombs in this set. There's like 3 or 4, and they're all like expensive, like huge stuff. That's like whatever. So like I don't know. Like it's fine. It's probably solid removal. It's probably even better than I'm giving it credit for. These type of spells are generally worse than they look, though. Fall of Xil'jalad. 1 and a green for a Saga. Chapter 1, scry 2. Chapter 2, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Chapter 3, until end of turn, target creature you control gains. When this creature dies, draw 2 cards. Then that creature fights up to 1 other target creature. So this card is very weird. What I would say about this card is that it does a lot of things. If you can get all of the things to actually matter, it's really great. You kind of need to have a 1-drop for that. If you go 1-drop into this, the game is maybe over. Potentially. Like, yeah, you're probably not getting that third. Like, if you go red 1-drop into this, like, that's red-green right there. That's the red-green tribal that I want to be playing. The Minister guy, like, that's, like, actually real. But that is also never going to happen. Is there a green one? There is a green. I don't think there's a green 1-drop. So yeah, I mean, if you have a 1-drop, this card is actually really good. Even if you don't, like on turn 4, it's actually like the scry is better later on in the game, right? Like on turn 2, scrying 2 basically doesn't do anything because you just want to draw things from your deck. It doesn't really matter what they are. You still want to draw lands. It's early in the game. You still want to draw spells. So the scry, like it's not helping you. You know, it synergizes with some of your cards, but doesn't really do anything. So the cheapness, like I don't know. It's kind of pulling you in like 8 different directions. So well, I'm interested to see how this plays out from like a win rate perspective. Its floor is kind of just high though, so I'm gonna give it a decent grade and see where it goes from there. Fanghorn, Tree Shepherd, 4 green for a 4/10. Tree folk you control have vigilance. Whenever you attack with 1 or more tree folk, add twice that much green. You don't lose unspent green mana as steps and phases end. Yeah, this is not for a limited, but also, I mean, like, it's kind of large in this set, actually. I mean, it is 7 mana, which means that it's, like, there's conflicts with this, too, right, with the ring, because the ring, you want to discard your lands once you get to the 2nd level of the ring, so you never really want to have 7 lands. Like, it just is not a number of lands that is reasonable to want to have, unless you're drawing a bunch of cards, which green doesn't really do. Again, there's like the Wombo Treefolk combo that I'm sure somebody will assemble, and it's like probably good in that deck if you have the Treefolk guy. But other than that, I'm not seeing really any place for it. Galadriel Bow, 2 and a green for an equipment. It has flash when it enters the battlefield. Attach it to target creature you control. Untap that creature. Equipped creature has +1/+2 and has reach and equip for 2. So obviously the base rate on the equipment is not very good, but the trick of it makes it fine. I am never really a big fan of like any 3 mana trick I basically just kind of throw in the trash, like for the most part. Unless it says draw a card on it, and then I'm like maybe interested. This does not say that, so I'm starting low on it, basically, is kind of my view on it. Like, reach is nice, it's sort of a defensive trick, but then it just gets blown out by literally anything ever. Like, your opponent just has anything ever, and you just lose, right? I don't know. I don't know about, like, just lose, but, like, you kind of just lose. So. Galadriel Guide, 3 any green for a 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, scry 2. Now, if this were a 4/3, I would actually be, like, really excited about it. Because it's a 3/4, I'm kind of like, eh. And in most circumstances, a 3/4 is a better stat line than a 4/3. But there are, like, random power 4 or greater things in the set. So, like, it does actually matter. But, yeah. I don't know. It seems, like, totally medium to me. Like, you'll probably... Like, it draws you... It kind of is drawing you a card. It, seems to be doing stuff. Generous Ent. 5 and a green for a 5/7 with reach. When it enters the battlefield, create a food token, and it has 4 cycling. Yeah, I mean, this card like just seems really, really strong to me. So it has reach. Like, I honestly think this card would be decent if it didn't have reach. Reach is kind of big in this set, and it's also like big on this creature, which is enormous. This creature is huge. Like, this is probably the biggest creature you're going to see in your limited drafts. I would say 80% of the time. Like, you're not really going to see anything bigger than this. Like, this thing is huge. And it also cycles. Like, I just think there's nothing not to like about this card. Food tokens, great. Like, you can just sacrifice. But at the time that you're playing this, you can sacrifice it to gain life. You can also sacrifice it to your other stuff that has, like, you have Zac outlets. Like, I mean, this thing is just great. I don't know. Gift of Strands. 3 and a green for an enchantment with flash. Enchant creature. When Gift of Strands enters the battlefield, scry 2. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3. So this seems like slightly more playable than these effects usually are, because it's at least gives you a scry. It still has flash. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like still not going to be great, but I don't know what's wrong with the dwarf in this image. Like, what is wrong with this dude? I'm trying to figure this. Like, his eyes look so messed up. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm noticing about this card, so be advised. Glorfindel, Dauntless Rescuer. 2 and a green for a 3/2. When you scry, choose 1, and this thing gets +1/+1 until end of turn. You can either choose it must be blocked at this turn if able, or it can't be blocked by more than 1 creature each combat this turn. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. It doesn't only let you choose 1, but like sometimes you can just like eat your opponent's stuff. Like, it forces trades and stuff. It's like really medium. Maybe it's even worse than medium. Like, I'm not gonna pick this highly, but like it'll end up in my deck maybe sometime. I probably just won't ever end up in my deck because people are gonna pick it like it's actually like really good, and it's just like fine. Like, I think it's gonna be enough scry that you want it sometimes, but nothing special. Last March of the Ents. 6 green for a sorcery. The spell can't be countered. Draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control, and then put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. So again, there's like this tree folk like wombo combo with this that like could happen. Like somebody could do it. I'm not gonna do it, but somebody might be able to do it. But yeah, so I was looking. I looked back because I remember the card in Baldur's Gate Alchemy set on Arena that was absolutely busto, Verdant Rejuvenation, and then I was like, is this card like all similar to that card? And then I was like, no, it is not similar to that card at all, because that card triggered based on mana value, and it also just grabbed creatures from your deck, which was insane. This does not do that. This just draws you cards, and half of those cards are going to be lands-ish, so yeah, it's not very good. Legolas, Master Archer. 1 green for a 1/4 with reach. When you cast a spell that targets Legolas, put a +1/+1 counter on it. When you cast a spell that targets a creature you don't control, Legolas deals damage equal to its power to up to 1 target creature. Yeah, I like this card quite a bit. The casting cost is very prohibitive, and therefore is keeping it from being tier 1, but it's solid. Like, it's a solid 1/4 that it has good effects when stuff happens, you know? Like, you're basically, if you cast a fight spell on this, it's really absurd. But um, that's kind of it. That's kind of what it does. Here we go. The long list of the Ents. Single green mana for it's a saga. Note a creature type that hasn't been noted by long list of the Ents. When you cast your next creature spell of that type this turn, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. And there are 6 triggers for this. So there's a trigger the first turn that you play this, and there's one for the next 5 turns. So let's assume, like, I think this card's like kind of good. There's a lot of hate for this card. I am somewhat positive on this card, I think, compared to many individuals. Why? Why do I feel this way? Well, I think you'll notice that, like, most of the creatures in this, like, just that they print generally these days have 2 creature types. And a lot of the times, the second creature type is sort of a throwaway, like, flavor creature type that just kind of is there, just whatever. They'll be like human, like, rogue, or human wizard or something. And, like, you can name wizard. Like, if you have to name human, you name human, and then you get the human. Like, my expectation is you're going to get 3 triggers off of this. And I think that that's good. I think that's actually genuinely good. So let's talk about, like, play patterns with this card. So you can play it on turn 1 and you just missed your first one. Fine. First one, name, like, I don't know, God or something, like God creature type, and then you just name something that you're never going to play. Then on turn 2 you play your 2-drop. The 2-drop gets buffed. The 2-drop is +1/+1 bigger than it's supposed to be. You almost certainly have a 3-drop with a different creature type. This is, now again, if you miss your 2-drop, not a huge deal, right? Like, it's still not a big deal. Would like to have a 2-drop, but, like, whatever, like, you missed your 2. I mean, if you don't have a 2-drop in your opening hand, it's possible you're supposed to just wait and play this on 2, but, like, that's only if you're on the play. Maybe, I don't know, you're probably still supposed to just run it out there. On turn 3 you're almost certainly going to have something to play, so you get that, and then on 4 again you're going to have a creature you want to play. Like, there's just ways. I think if you hit 3 creatures with this, you're going to be thrilled. That's what I think, and I think that's super doable. And I think that there's a lot of times you're going to get 4 hits off of this. Turn 3, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, and turn 6. Let's just say you take turn 5 off to remove their, like, big thing. That's 4 hits. That's not, like, completely unimaginable that happens. Like, you play creatures a lot in Limited. And so, like, yes, like, there are times where you're going to have types that just don't line up, and it's going to just be weird. But I still think if each creature has 2 types, like, there's a lot of thinking that goes into this card. It's not a card that is easy to, like, play with. You have to do a lot of planning on, like, what you're going to do on which turns, and I really like the design of it. But I think it's somewhat strong. Like, I think it actually gets there. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I'm excited about this card. I really like it. Lithorian Lookout. This to speak about what I just talked about, like Elf Scout. You see what I mean here? Where it's like there's just, like, there's no other scouts in the set. There just aren't any other scouts. So if you, like, play this on 2, like, you can just name Scout, and you're like, okay, great. Like, I just have a free counter on this thing, and then it's like, wait, you know what I mean? 1 and a green for a 1/3. Whenever it attacks, scry 1. Yeah, this thing I just don't think is very good. I mean, it's like 2 mana 1/3s are just not a good thing to be doing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how valuable is having the ring. If having the ring on this is valuable, great, but I just don't. Like, scry and looting are sort of at odds with each other, and the ring is trying to loot, so, like, it just doesn't seem that great for me. Many Partings. So, single green mana for a sorcery, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle, create a food token. Yep. This seems really good to me. 1 mana make a food. I think 1 mana make a food is, like, not good, but not, like, the worst, like, completely unplayable thing of all time. Yeah, it's like healing. Let's go healing salve, kind of. But, like, you also, like, you're getting your card back. You're getting a land. You're fixing. I don't know. It seems decent to me. I'm happy about this card. Meriadoc Brandybuck. 1 and a green for a 2/2. Whenever 1 or more halflings you control attack a player, create a food token. Yeah, this thing seems fine. Like, just repeatable food generation, I think, is really strong. Just any token generation repeatedly is strong. This thing, whenever it attacks, or whenever one of your other halflings attack. Yeah. Don't know why it has to attack a player, but, sure. I mean, there aren't any planeswalkers in the set, so again, like, not a big deal, but yeah, solid card. Mirkwood Spider. Single green mana for a 1/1 with Death Touch. When it attacks, target legendary creature you control gains Death Touch until end of turn. Yeah, I mean, this thing's pretty annoying. You can have this have good attacks and make your ring bearer have great attacks. So, like if you have this, if you curve this into Frodo, like your opponent's just like, oh, I can't ever play a creature ever because it just die. Like this into Frodo is actually a thing that is going to happen. Like the green white Frodo, obviously. That's gonna happen sometimes, and like you're just gonna lose because it's just like, well, because I can't ever block. I guess I'm like trading my 2-drop for this, which is like a great deal for you, and you're thrilled about it. So, yeah, I like this card. It's decent. I don't think it's like anything amazing, but solid. Mirror Guardian. 2 any green for a 4/2. When it dies, the ring tempts you. So this is basically the only 4-power creature for 3 in the whole set, at least at common. And so as a result of this, it is important for green 4-power decks, green red 4-power decks. There are questions about whether or not, even if you are playing that deck, you want this card, because the card itself is very bad. Like, if 3-mana 4/2 has proven to just not be a good stat line, especially when its effect is on die. Like when it's like dies is just so bad. Like, it just, like, remember I know the guy from like Brothers War just milled you a bunch, so that was like even worse than this. But it's still like, this is still just so like, to always be trading down pretty much is really bad. Like, this never has good attacks, ever has good attacks, and it doesn't even like block that well. So it's just, I don't know. I'm out on this card until proven otherwise. Mushroom Watchdogs. They have very foreboding eyes. 1 and a green for a 2/2, especially on my monitor. I don't know, I'm getting freaked out right now. Sacrifice a food, put a +1/+1 counter on Mushroom Watchdogs. It gains vigilance until end of turn, activate only as a sorcery. I like this card quite a bit. So, free, like a 0 mana cost, food, sack, outlet in green that gives you tempo. I think that's really important. I think those are really like high value. There aren't many of them. This is one. Like, this is probably the only one. So it's important. These are going to be very important. They're aggressive, these strategy creatures. Once again, have a random unique creature type that just like is just nobody else has this. Like I don't know. I'm on my long list of the ants. You know, shenanigans again. Peregrine Took. 2 and a green for a 2/3. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional food token are created instead. And you can sacrifice 3 foods to draw cards. This is another free food sack outlet. It's a little bit pricier, but it does help you generate that. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just really strong. Like, it just does, like, and obviously, like, the rate itself is not good. You have to create a token for this to be anywhere near decent. Like, I actually don't even know if you create like 1 food token, if that's good, because like if you were just, I mean, 3 mana 2/3 create a food, have the ability to sacrifice 3 foods to draw a card would be like okay. But yeah, I mean, this is a builder. Like, you do have to have the food generators or token generators. Like, it really is any token, and there's tons of tokens in the set. So like, I'm just kind of in on this guy. Pippin's Bravery. Single green mana for an instant. You may sacrifice a food. If you do, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. Otherwise, that creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Yeah, so we've seen this type of trick before that can alternate between +2/+2 and +4/+4. It turns out the +4/+4 is a lot. Oftentimes, it can just like burn your opponent out from like 8 or something. Like it really is like a lot of damage. And like just the modality of being able to cast it to save your thing sometimes, or like just trade up, and like all that. There's all kinds of, like this. There's lots of ways to use this. Another free food sacrifice outlet. So like, yeah, just to pay off for generating food. You want to be generating food anyway. So Quick Beam, Upstart Ent. 4 green for a 5/6. When it or another tree folk enters the battlefield under your control, up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+2 and gain trample until end of turn. Yeah, I mean, this is just an absolute beating. I mean, this card is so much damage. Like, so you play, like, let's say, like, on turn 6, you're going to cast this card. What does your board state look like on the average turn 6 that you're, like, alive and on a green deck? Well, you probably have your 4-drop, and you probably have, like, a 2-drop. Like, that's kind of, like, your average case scenario, I think, on turn 6. Where there's, like, a 4-drop and a 2-drop, your opponent's got, like, their 4-drop and 2-drop, and you're just kind of, like, hanging out, you know? The creatures in this set are pretty small, so +2/+2 is going to be enough to pretty much make any creature other than a 1/1 attack into pretty much anything your opponent has. So, like, that's just a lot of damage. That's so much damage. And this is a 5/6 on blocks, which is like totally fine. Like, it's going to block everything. I don't know. I just really like this card. Just a lot of damage and like blocks. Like, there are the tree folk that come up but aren't like especially great, but they do come up. So I mean, it's solid. Radagast the Brown. 2 green for a 2/5. When it or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top X cards of your library where X is that creature's mana value. You may reveal a creature card that doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control from among those cards and put it onto your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. This is much worse than, in terms of like the, like, note how like the difference between this and Long List of the Ants. Long List of the Ants is exclusive, whereas this is like inclusive. Like this, this makes it so much more difficult. Like if you have anything that's like contains wizard in it, you can't take it, or avatar. That being said, like, it's still probably gonna draw you a card. Most of the time, it draws you a card. And like it just threatens to generate a lot of value. Like that's just what it does. It probably just starts missing after you have like 3 creatures on the battlefield, but like whatever. Like, I don't know. It's still fine. It's a 2/5, which is really annoying and weird to like get around and stuff. Like, there aren't really that many great ways to deal with it, so I like the card. Revive the Shire. 1 and a green for a sorcery. Return target permanent from your graveyard to your hand. Create a food token. I actually kind of like this card. Generally, like, this type of card is very bad, but you know, you're tacking on a food token, which is decent little bit of value. It does sort of make up for you losing out your board presence. But again, these type of cards tend to be very situational, so I'm going to start low on it. But I definitely see potential in this card, unlike a lot of versions of this where I don't see any potential ever. This one seems like it might have some potential sometimes. The Ring Goes South. 4 mana ramp. So I'm not going to read it because it's bad and you should not play it. You can read it if you want. The card's not good. Shortcut to Mushrooms. 1 and a green for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So this is sort of like this weird build around the enchantment thing that like wants you to sacrifice your food tokens mostly is kind of what it wants you to do, and it makes your stuff bigger. I like that, but I also don't like that like it has this tension between like if one of your things leaves, you want to put a +1/+1 counter on something, but like then you may not have anything to put a counter on. It could be decent sometimes, but I think like end step is really bad. Like if this was like, oh, beginning of combat, if a creature, I don't know, or something, like, yeah. Shower of Arrows. 2 and a green for an instant. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Scry 1. It's an instant, so these type of effects at instant speed are still not very good usually. Newmont will play him, and he will lose more games as a result, but that's okay. He probably loses, what, like 5 to 10 games a set because he plays these? Something like that? I don't know. It's not a lot, but like, because he plays so many games, it just comes, like, there's just games that you lose because you play this card, so. It wins him like 5 games, he loses him 10 games, so, you know. That's just kind of how it goes. But like this, and honestly, like, and this is like we're getting into psychology moment here. Like, that's actually probably a life EV positive. You know what I mean? Because I think the ratio is like, you remember 5 losses equal to 5 wins is equal to like 1 loss in terms of your like mental balance wise. So you have to win like 80% of the time to be like happy. Generally, like and that's not like universally true, but that's just sort of like a something I've heard about, like positive versus negative outcomes. Depends on how you lose, how you win, all that stuff. But yeah, that's sort of a interesting tangent. Stew the Conies. 2 and a green for an instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Create a food token. So I like this. I don't like that it's 3 mana, but I do like that it makes a food token a lot. The set is a little slow, and it is an instant. So I mean, I don't know. I don't mind it. Again, your bite spell being 3 mana tends to be bad, but it, sometimes it's acceptable. I think this is one of those cases. Like, you're generating a food token. Food tokens are going to be in like high demand in like pretty much anything you're doing with green. So. Woe's Pathfinder. 1 and a green for a 1/1. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, and you can pay 6 and tap it, 6 and a green and tap it, and another target creature. Not even this one. I mean, like, by no means. Anyways, gets +3/+3 and gains trample until end of turn. I don't know, man. Like, why? Like, you can't have anything. Is that? There are people that will think this card is good always, and there are me. Like, I just don't think like mana dorks are good. This one, like at least make the ability like relevant. I don't know, like it's 7 mana, and you have to tap this thing. Like, that's really bad. and this thing dies to anything, and it just, yes, it's any color mana, but I don't know. Maybe like you could play it as fixing, and it's not complete. It's an absolute nightmare. I don't know. Hope I've gone back. And on that note, that's like basically the end of the thing. I'm all over the place trying to like not accidentally like scroll through my stuff. But how do I feel about green? Well, I have low expectations for green. As I was talking about at some random point in the middle of this, I just like can't remember the last time green was like actively the best color in a set, and I just don't think that's happening. I don't know. Maybe it's bad. I mean, the pre-release events are happening like this weekend. I'm not doing any this time. But also the streamer early access is like today, so we'll see how they feel about it. But if you enjoyed the set review, that's great. So I hope you did. If you did that and you for some reason didn't watch the other ones, go do that. Maybe there will be similar enlightenment there. Probably not though. It's probably not gonna. It's never gonna be as good. That's it. So see you.